Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive where we break down exactly what you need to know to land your dream job.
That's right.
Today we're going to be talking about how to become an industrial electrician.
Yeah.
And to do that, we're going to be looking at some of the really great resources from RoleCatcher.
It's like having a career coach in your pocket.
Yeah, exactly like having a career coach in your pocket. And specifically, we're going to be looking at some interview questions from their Industrial Electrician Interview Guide.
Exactly.
So let's just jump right into it.
Let's do it.
The first question I see here is, tell me about your experience working with electrical systems.
Oh, yeah, that's a classic.
Yeah, it seems pretty straightforward, but I'm sure that there's more to it than meets the eye.
For sure.
So what are interviewers really trying to figure out when they ask this question?
Well, it might seem basic, but they're really looking for you to give them like a quick snapshot of your skills as an electrician.
Like an elevator pitch.
Yeah.
Exactly. An elevator pitch you want to sum up in like 30 seconds, why you're the perfect person for this job.
Okay, so concise and impactful.
Yes.
How would you suggest people approach this question then?
All right. Well, first, you want to make sure you're only talking about experience that's relevant to this job.
Right.
So read that job description carefully. And then when you're talking about your experience, don't just list things off.
Got it.
Like instead of saying, I have 5 years of experience in wiring, you could say something like, I've spent the last 5 years mastering industrial wiring systems, from troubleshooting complex circuits to making sure they work perfectly with all the latest automation technology.
Ooh, that's way better.
Right.
Much more specific, yeah, and highlights those important skills.
Exactly.
Now, what's like the biggest mistake people make when answering this question?
The biggest mistake I see is people being way too general.
Okay.
Like just saying, I have experience with electrical systems is not going to cut it.
Yeah, that's like saying, I know how to use a hammer.
Exactly. You got to be specific about what kind of systems you worked on, what your responsibilities were, and what skills you picked up along the way.
You got to give them the details.
Exactly.
Okay, now I know we've talked about how RoleCatcher uses AI to help people tailor their answers to specific jobs.
Right.
How would that work for this question?
So let's say you're applying for a job where safety is a really big deal.
Okay.
RoleCatcher's AI might suggest you mention your experience with things like lockout, tagout procedures, even if the question doesn't directly ask about it.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's all about understanding what the employer really cares about and making sure your answer reflects that.
It's like AI mind reading.
Kind of.
Okay, well, let's move on to the next question. Describe the most challenging electrical project you've worked on.
Another classic.
Yeah, why do you think interviewers always ask this one?
I think they're really trying to see how you handle tough situations.
Okay, problem-solving skills.
Exactly. They want to know if you can think on your feet and come up with solutions when things get difficult.
So it's not just about describing the problem. It's about how you handled it.
Absolutely. You want to walk them through your thought process.
Okay.
Like what steps did you take? What resources did you use? How did you make decisions?
Give them that behind-the-scenes look.
Yes.
So what would be a good example of a project that would really impress an interviewer?
Well, let's say you were working on a historic building.
Okay.
And you had to upgrade the electrical system, but you ran into all sorts of problems like outdated wiring or really limited space to work in.
Oh, yeah. Those old buildings can be tricky.
And on top of that, you have to follow all these strict preservation codes.
So lots of constraints.
Yeah, that's a challenging project.
Definitely. Now, what should people avoid doing when they answer this question?
The biggest thing to avoid is blaming other people.
Okay.
Even if you had a difficult coworker or a demanding client, don't focus on that. Instead, talk about what you did to overcome the challenges and how you handled the situation professionally.
Take ownership.
Exactly. It shows that you're a problem solver, not a problem maker.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, before we get to the next question, I want to touch on something I've found in RoleCatcher's Career Guide for Industrial Electricians.
Okay.
It says that 71% of industrial electricians need strong mechanical skills.
It's true.
That kind of surprised me.
Yeah.
I thought it was mostly about electrical stuff.
Well, in industrial settings, you're often working with a lot of complex machinery.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So you might be troubleshooting robotic arms one day and then fixing the wiring on a giant HVAC system the next.
Wow. So you really need to be comfortable with both electrical and mechanical systems.
Exactly.
That's fascinating. Okay, well, let's get back to those interview questions. The next one is all about safety. How do you ensure that electrical systems are safe and compliant with regulations?
Yes, safety. That's a big one.
Yeah, I bet interviewers pay close attention to this one. What are they really looking for?
They want to see that you understand how important safety is and that you're committed to following all the rules.
Okay, so how do you suggest people approach this question?
Don't just rattle off a list of regulations.
Okay,
Instead, talk about how you actually apply those regulations in your work.
got it. So give them specific examples.
Exactly. Like you could say something like, on a recent project, I noticed some exposed wiring that could have been dangerous, so I immediately stopped work and followed the proper lockout tagout procedures to make sure everyone was safe before continuing.
Okay, that's much better than just saying, I follow all the safety regulations.
Right. It shows that you take action and prioritize safety.
And this might also be a good time to mention any safety certifications you have.
Absolutely.
Okay, so speaking of highlighting things, how would RoleCatcher's AI help someone prepare for this safety question?
So let's say the job description mentions something about a zero-incident safety culture.
Okay.
RoleCatcher's AI might suggest you talk about how you're always looking for potential hazards and taking steps to prevent accidents from happening.
I see. So it's about tailoring your answer to the specific values of the company.
Ex-
Okay, let's keep going. The next question on RoleCatcher's list is, how do you troubleshoot electrical problems?
That's another important one.
Yeah, this seems like it requires a very systematic approach.
Yeah.
What are they looking for here?
You're right. They want to see that you have a clear process for identifying and solving problems.
Okay, so walk them through your steps.
Exactly. You want to be structured and methodical in your explanation.
So instead of just saying, I would check the wiring, I should say something like,
Well, you could say something like, first, I would isolate the affected circuit using a circuit breaker finder. Then I would visually inspect the wiring for any obvious damage or loose connections. And after that, I would use a multimeter to test the voltage and continuity of the circuit.
okay, so be very specific and walk them through each step.
Yes, the more detail you can provide, the better.
Now, what are some things people should avoid saying when they answer this question?
Don't be vague.
Okay.
Like, avoid saying things like, I would check everything, because that doesn't really tell them anything about your skills.
Got it. Show them that you know what you're doing.
Exactly.
Okay, so the next question is, describe your experience with PLC programming.
Ah, PLCs.
Yeah, I know they're becoming really important in industrial settings.
Absolutely. They're everywhere.
So how should someone approach this question if they don't have a lot of experience with PLCs?
Well, honesty is always the best policy.
Oh.
If you have some basic knowledge, mention that even if you haven't done a ton of programming,
Okay.
and be sure to highlight your willingness to learn and any steps you've taken to familiarize yourself with PLC technology.
So even a little bit of knowledge can go a long way.
For sure.
Well, what if someone does have extensive experience with PLC programming? How should they showcase that?
That's their time to shine.
Okay.
They should talk about the specific types of PLCs they've worked with,
All right.
the programming languages they're proficient in, and the complexity of the programs they've developed.
Don't be afraid to get technical.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
But are there any pitfalls to avoid when answering this question?
Yeah, you don't want to exaggerate your experience.
Right. And be careful about using too much jargon that the interviewer might not understand.
So keep it clear and concise even when you're getting technical.
Exactly.
Okay, before we move on to the next question, I want to circle back to the RoleCatcher Career Guide.
Sure.
It mentions that industrial electricians can specialize in different areas as they gain experience.
Oh, yeah, there are lots of paths you can take.
Like, what are some examples?
Well, some electricians specialize in automation and robotics,
Okay.
while others might focus on things like renewable energy systems or building automation.
Wow. So many options.
And some even work in hazardous locations like oil refineries or chemical plants.
That sounds intense.
It definitely can be, but it's also very rewarding.
So there's really something for everyone.
Exactly.
Okay, let's get back to those interview questions. The next one is, how do you stay up to date with the latest electrical technologies and practices?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah. Why do you think interviewers ask this?
I think they want to see that you're committed to lifelong learning. Okay, makes sense. The electrical field is always changing.
Absolutely. So staying current is essential.
So how can someone best answer this question?
To talk about the specific steps you take to stay informed. Yeah. Like, do you read industry publications, attend conferences or webinars, take online courses?
Got it. So don't just say, I'm always learning. Give them specifics.
Right. You want to show them that you're proactive and dedicated to your professional development.
And this would be a good time to mention any certifications or professional organizations you belong to.
Absolutely.
Okay, now, what are some common mistakes people make when answering this question?
The biggest mistake is being passive.
Okay.
Like saying, I read articles online sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yeah, that doesn't really show commitment.
So be specific and show them that you're actively engaged in learning new things.
Exactly.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive.
We have.
We've tackled those initial technical questions and even got a glimpse into some career insights from the RoleCatcher Career Guide.
And we've only just begun.
Exactly. Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll dive into those personality-focused questions, explore more career paths, and give you even more tips on how to use RoleCatcher's AI to your advantage.
Can't wait.
It's going to be good.
All right, welcome back.
We're ready to keep going with those interview questions.
Yeah.
Last time we covered a lot of the more technical questions.
Yeah. Got it.
So this time I want to focus on the questions that are more about personality and work style.
Oh, yeah. Those are important, too.
They really are, because they tell the interviewer a lot about how you would fit into the team and handle the day-to-day challenges of the job.
Exactly. Like, can you handle the pressure?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So what's the first personality-focused question on our list from RoleCatcher?
Let's see. The first one is, how do you prioritize tasks when working on multiple projects?
Oh yeah, the classic juggling act. Every
Yeah.
electrician knows what that's like.
It's like a daily reality.
Totally. So what are interviewers hoping to hear when they ask this?
Well, I think they're really trying to figure out how you handle pressure.
Okay.
Can you manage your time effectively? Can you make good decisions about what needs to happen first?
So it's not just about being busy, it's about being organized and strategic.
Exactly.
Okay, so how would you suggest approaching this question?
Well, first you want to highlight your organizational skills.
Okay,
Do you use to-do lists, project management apps, anything like that?
got it.
And then you want to walk them through your process for prioritizing tasks.
Okay,
Like, what factors do you consider? Is the deadlines, the complexity of the task, the impact on other team members?
so give them a peek inside your brain.
Exactly. Let them see how you stay on top of everything.
Okay, so what would be a good example of a prioritization strategy that would impress an interviewer?
Okay. Let's say you have 3 things you need to get done.
Yep.
You have a routine maintenance check, a complex wiring installation, and an emergency repair.
Oh boy, okay, that's a lot.
So in that situation, you'd explain that you'd handle that emergency repair first to minimize downtime.
Maybe-
Then you'd tackle the complex installation and finally wrap up with the routine check.
Okay, so it's all about balancing urgency with those long-term goals.
Right.
Now, what are some pitfalls to avoid when answering this question? What should people not say?
Don't say you just work on whatever comes first.
No.
Or that you multitask everything.
Right,
Because
well,
those answers make it sound like you're not really planning or prioritizing, which can be a recipe for disaster in this field.
Yeah, especially in industrial settings where things need to be done precisely and on time.
Exactly.
Okay, so be organized, be strategic, and show them you can juggle those multiple priorities without dropping any of the balls.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay, let's move on to another tricky question. This one always seems to come up. Describe a time when you had to work with a difficult team member or client.
Yeah, we've all been there.
Right, it's unavoidable. So what's the best way to approach this question?
Well, first of all, don't pretend like you've never had to deal with a difficult person.
Okay.
Because that's just not believable.
Right.
Be authentic. Choose a situation that was genuinely challenging, but also one where you were able to contribute to a positive resolution.
Yeah.
And focus on the steps you took to find a solution. Try to frame it as a learning experience.
So highlight those diplomacy skills.
Exactly.
So what would be a good example of a situation that demonstrates your ability to resolve conflict?
Let's say you were working on a project with a team member who constantly disagreed with your ideas.
Okay, I've had that happen.
You could explain how you took the initiative to have a one-on-one conversation with them.
Okay.
You listened to their concerns, and then you worked together to find a compromise that benefited the project as a whole.
That shows that you're willing to collaborate and find solutions.
Exactly.
Now, what are some things people should avoid doing when they answer this question?
The biggest thing to avoid is bad-mouthing the other person.
Okay,
Even if they were truly difficult to work with, keep it professional.
got it.
Focus on the situation itself and the positive actions you took, not on their personality flaws.
No negativity. Okay, so stay positive, focus on the resolution, and show them you can handle those tricky interpersonal dynamics.
Perfect.
Okay, so we've talked about prioritizing and conflict resolution now before we move on to the next question.
Yeah.
I want to touch on something I found really interesting in RoleCatcher's Career Guide.
Okay, what is it?
It talks about how industrial electricians have a pretty clear path for career growth.
Oh, yeah, it's not a dead-end job.
Right, you don't have to stay in the same role forever.
Exactly. As you gain experience and maybe specialize in a certain area, you can move into leadership roles.
Okay.
You could become a project manager or even start your own electrical contracting business.
Wow, that's really cool. So what might that career progression look like? What does a senior level electrician actually do?
Well, a senior electrician might oversee entire projects, for example.
Okay.
They might manage teams of other electricians or work on highly specialized systems like the ones you find in automated manufacturing plants.
So they're the experts,
Yeah.
the go-to people for solving the really tough problems.
Exactly, and they often mentor less experienced electricians, too.
So it's a combination of leadership, technical expertise, and mentorship.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Okay, well, let's get back to those interview questions. The next one is, how do you approach electrical system design?
That's a good one.
Yeah, this seems like it requires more than just following instructions.
Definitely, they're looking for someone who can think creatively and solve problems.
Okay, so what are they really trying to assess with this question?
I think they want to see if you can take a client's needs and translate those into a functional and safe electrical system.
Okay, so big picture thinking and problem solving.
Exactly.
So how should someone approach this question?
We'll walk them through your design process.
Okay.
Do you start by conducting a thorough site survey?
Okay.
Do you create detailed sketches or use CAD software? How do you make sure your designs meet all the safety codes and regulations?
So show them how you bring all those elements together.
Exactly.
What would be a good example of a design approach that would impress an interviewer?
Okay, let's say you're designing the electrical system for a brand new manufacturing facility.
Okay.
You could explain how you'd start by talking to the client to really understand their needs.
Okay, like what kind of equipment they'll be using.
Exactly. You need to know their power requirements, their production processes, everything.
Got it.
Then you conduct a site survey to check out the existing infrastructure and identify any potential challenges.
Like maybe there's not enough space for all the wiring.
Right, or maybe the existing electrical service isn't strong enough.
So you really have to think about all those things.
And then finally, you'd use your expertise and all the industry standard tools to create a design that's both functional and safe.
That's a great example. Now, are there any pitfalls to avoid when answering this question?
Yeah, don't get so lost in the technical details that you forget about the big picture.
Okay.
Remember, the goal is to create a system that meets the client's needs and works effectively in the real world.
So it's got to be practical. Okay, let's move on to one final question in this section. Describe your experience with electrical maintenance.
Maintenance.
It might seem straightforward, but I'm sure there's more to it than just fixing things when they break.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
What are interviewers really hoping to hear?
Well, they want to know if you're proactive about maintenance.
Okay.
Do you just wait for things to break, or do you take steps to prevent problems from happening in the first place?
So they're looking for that preventative mindset.
Exactly.
How would you suggest someone answer this question effectively?
Start by describing the types of maintenance tasks you've performed.
Okay.
Have you done routine inspections, preventative maintenance on motors or other equipment? Have you kept good records of your work?
So give them the details.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then talk about your overall approach to maintenance.
Okay.
Do you use a checklist? Do you use specialized diagnostic tools? The more specific you can be, the better.
Okay, so paint a picture of your meticulous maintenance routine. What would be a good example of a maintenance approach that would impress an interviewer?
Okay, let's say you're in charge of maintaining the electrical system in a large commercial building.
Okay.
You could explain how you conduct regular inspections of all the wiring connections and equipment following a strict checklist to make sure you don't miss anything.
Okay.
You could also mention how you use things like thermal imaging cameras to detect potential problems that you wouldn't be able to see with the naked eye.
Wow, that's high tech.
It is, but it's becoming more common in preventative maintenance.
So it shows that you're staying up to date with the latest tools and techniques.
Exactly.
Now, what are some pitfalls to avoid when answering this question?
Don't make it sound like you only fix problems when they become major issues, because that suggests a reactive approach, which can be really costly and even dangerous with electrical systems.
Right, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Exactly. Showcase your proactive mindset and your commitment to keeping those systems running smoothly.
Absolutely. Okay, speaking of prevention, let's bring back RoleCatcher's AI one more time.
All right.
How could its analysis of the job description help someone prepare for this maintenance question?
So if the job description mentions preventative maintenance or talks about the importance of minimizing downtime,
Okay.
RoleCatcher's AI might suggest that you highlight your experience with things like creating and implementing preventative maintenance schedules or your expertise in using predictive maintenance technologies.
It's like having a personalized guide to help you navigate all the nuances of each job description.
Exactly. It helps you give the interviewer exactly what they're looking for.
Okay, well, I think we've covered some really valuable ground in this second part of our deep dive.
We have.
We've explored those personality-focused questions, talked about career progression, and once again, highlighted the power of RoleCatcher's AI.
It's an amazing tool.
It really is. But we're not done yet.
Nope.
In part 3, we'll wrap things up with a focused look at RoleCatcher's AI superpowers and how they can really take your interview prep to a whole new level.
I'm excited for that.
I am too, and we'll also leave you with some final thoughts and advice to help you walk into that interview feeling confident and prepared.
Sounds good.
So stay tuned for the grand finale. Welcome back to the deep dive. It's time for the grand finale.
We're ready to wrap things up.
We are. We've talked about so much already, those technical questions, the personality stuff, even a little bit about career paths.
Yeah, it's been a lot.
But before we officially close out this deep dive, we have to talk more about RoleCatcher's AI.
Yeah, we've been hinting at it throughout this whole episode.
It's kind of the secret sauce that brings everything together.
It is.
So for anyone who's just joining us, or maybe needs a refresher, can you explain again how RoleCatcher's AI actually works?
Okay, so basically, you start by plugging in the details of the job you're interested in.
Okay, so the job description.
Exactly. You give RoleCatcher that information, and its AI goes to work analyzing it, figuring out exactly what the employer's looking for.
So it's like having an AI detective on your side.
It's a good way to put it.
But it doesn't stop there, right?
No, it goes way beyond that.
Okay, how so?
Once it understands what the employer wants, it helps you tailor your CV, your cover letter, and most importantly, your interview answers.
So it's like having a personalized coach who's giving you advice based on the specific job you're applying for.
Exactly. It's all about giving you that extra edge.
I love it. Okay, so let's connect this back to some of the questions we've been talking about.
Okay.
Let's say you're preparing for that question about your most challenging project. How would RoleCatcher's AI come in handy?
Okay, so let's imagine the job description mentions something about teamwork or being able to handle pressure.
Oh.
Even if the question itself doesn't directly ask about those things, RoleCatcher's AI might suggest you highlight experiences that showcase those skills.
Ah, I see. So it's about reading between the lines and understanding what the employer is really after.
Exactly. It's like having a secret weapon.
I like that. Now, I'm also curious about RoleCatcher's AI-powered features for practicing interview answers.
Oh, yeah, that's a game changer.
How does that work?
Basically, you record yourself answering common interview questions, and then RoleCatcher analyzes your performance.
Oh, wow. So it's like having a mock interview, but with an AI coach.
Exactly, and it gives you really personalized feedback on everything from your delivery to your word choice, even your body language.
That's incredible. It's like having a personal stylist for your interview skills.
You could say that.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about all those technical skills and problem-solving abilities and those important soft skills, but I want to shift gears for a moment.
Okay.
What about those personal qualities that aren't always listed in the job description?
I see what you mean.
Like the things that really make someone thrive as an industrial electrician?
Oh, yeah, that's important too.
Because you're not just working on circuits and wires, you're working in all sorts of environments, sometimes under pressure, maybe in challenging conditions.
Absolutely.
So what are those essential qualities that go beyond just technical know-how?
Well, I think things like adaptability are really important.
Okay.
Being able to adjust to different situations. Right. And a strong work ethic.
Of course.
And you absolutely have to be committed to safety.
Safety first.
Always. And maybe even a little bit of a sense of adventure.
Yeah, you never know what you're going to encounter on the job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think those are some of the things that make a great industrial electrician truly stand out.
It's that spark of passion and resilience that really makes a difference.
Couldn't agree more.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought to ponder.
Okay. I like it.
What personal qualities do you think are essential for success as an industrial electrician? What sets the best of the best apart from the rest?
That's a great question to think about. And remember, what we've talked about today is just a small taste of what RoleCatcher offers.
It is.
If you're serious about becoming an industrial electrician, I highly recommend checking out their website and exploring all their resources.
They have those career guides, interview guides, that amazing AI-powered feedback tool. It's all there waiting for you.
So go out there and electrify that interview.
And that's a wrap on the deep dive We'll be back next time with another insightful exploration of an exciting career path. Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and keep on learning.